Traditionally, the narrative of communism and explanations for its collapse follow one of two linked trajectories, one material and one ideological, or if you prefer, theory and praxis. The first traces the rise and fall of the Eastern European industrial economies built with all their inefficiencies and terrors on the ruins left by the Second World War. In this narrative, the epical days of building socialism during the late 1940s and 1950s created something of an economic miracle on the ground. A miracle that found Bulgaria ahead of her capitalist neighbors in many measures of economic development by the mid-1960s. Full employment, a rapidly developing urban economy and infrastructure, and the promise of even better tomorrows painted the horizon. Building socialism moved into living and enjoying developed socialism with the idea that the emergence of a better communist world was only a few subway stops down the line. Now, it was the lived experience of the 1980s that gave lie to the illusion of prosperity of the socialist good life of the 1960s and 1970s. And that story is a story I tell in my book and other places. We'll leave that alone a little bit for now. So to make this long story short, ultimately, the planned industrial economies were unable to adapt to and adequately compete with the transformations in capitalism as it moved into its post-industrial iteration. State socialism was unable to close now-productive factories. To replace workers with machines was ideologically problematic. And most importantly, centralized planning was unable to match the logic of the market in proper allocation of resources and distribution of goods. Stephen Kotkin and others have persuasively argued that the collapse of communism in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe was driven primarily by an establishment that felt it had more to gain by jettisoning than by pursuing a communist ideology which served as a brake on the development of a fully realized middle-class society measured in purchasing power and its own material standards. In short, the economic crisis of the 1980s forced elites to choose either the middle-class project, understood as capitalism and their own material prosperity, or the promises of ideology, equally distributed abundance, which is never achieved. Throughout Eastern Europe, communist parties surrendered power and, after renaming themselves, entered the democratic process that dismantled the checkered legacy of communism on the path to liberal democratic capitalism.